started with today's webinar. Welcome everyone. My name is Carissa White. I am a staff specialist at the Air District on the community engagement team. And I'm going to be leading today's webinar today, covering the community organizing grants application process and the mapping project that we are hoping you guys will all be a part of. And so I'm going to screen share some slides and we'll go ahead and get started. Give me just a second. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and 1 second. It's a little bit quirkier on my end. Go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be covering tag teaming this presentation today with my colleague Anish, who I'm going to introduce pretty soon. But here's a snapshot of today's webinar. And so we're going to be doing our welcome and introductions, and we do have a quick icebreaker to cover with today's group. And then we're going to jump into an overview of the Air District, as well as AB 617, and specifically some background information around East Oakland as well. And then we'll touch on an overview of the community organizing grants application and process as well. And then we'll hear more about the actual mapping project itself, which will be followed by a demo that I'll lead you guys through. And then we'll conclude today's webinar with a Q&A session to answer any questions that you guys have. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with introductions for today. And so I have already introduced myself. This is being so quirky for me right now. I have already introduced myself, but we have a couple of other Air District staff, some staff members from CBE, as well as Just Cities that we wanted to introduce to you all today before we get started with the rest of the webinar. So I will pass it over to my colleague, Anish, to introduce himself.
Thanks, Carissa. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Anish Rana, and I work with Carissa in the Air District's Community Engagement Office. I'm on the team that is supporting the East Oakland Community Emissions Reduction Plan development process. And some of you I see here, I've also had the privilege of working with through the Air District's James Cary Smith Community Grant Program. And with that, I'll leave it at there for right now, and I'll hand it over to the manager of our Community Engagement Office, Anna Lee.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm one of the managers with our Environmental Justice and Community Engagement Division. And Anna Lee, she, her, and in addition to this program, a project that you're going to hear about today, I just want to plug that this is part of a broader project that we're doing in partnership with the other organizations here on the call who are presenting and introducing themselves. And it's through our Assembly Bill 617 program to create a community emissions reduction plan with the East Oakland community members and community steering committee. My role is to support Anish and Carissa, and we have a broader team here in doing that work to collaboratively come up with a plan together and support the community members to do that work. So your being here is exciting because you're of your interest, and also if you become a grantee, you will be contributing to that plan that we are creating. And with that, I would love to pass it to one of our partner organizations. And I think I'm passing it to Lujane.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. My name is Lujane Alsale. I use she, her pronouns, and I am with Communities for a Better Environment, which is a community-based org that has a team. I work on the East Oakland team. We also have teams across the state of California, one in Wilmington in Southern California and Richmond as well. And my main role as a part of this project is coordinating, as Anna said, AB 617 work in East Oakland. I'm super excited about the Social Pinpoint project and having the opportunity to learn from you all and learn from your ideas. And I thank you all for your time and being here. And then I'll pass it off to, I think, Masom, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Mausam. I am representing Just Cities. Just Cities is a planning and policy-based organization here, where we mostly work in the East Bay. I am also working with Lujen and the Air District team here on the East Oakland Community Emissions Reductions Plan, and will be supporting on the community mapping project with administering the grants and with some summary analysis. Yeah, excited to work with you all. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off to Charisma.
Thank you, Mausam. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charisma AC, she, her pronouns. I'm a professor at City and Regional Planning at UC Berkeley, where I teach and do research on environmental justice, community participation in environmental planning. And I'll be supporting Mausam at Just Cities and providing technical assistance to organizations that receive community organizing grants, and also supporting analysis of the community mapping results. And really happy to be here and excited about this project. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the slides back up so that I can give the instructions on the icebreaker activity that we'll have everyone do. Just give me just a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so for today's icebreaker, we're gonna have folks kind of do like a round robin style where we'll have you introduce your name, your preferred pronouns, the organization that you're affiliated with, and then also answer one of the two questions below. And so the first is, have you participated in a community mapping project in the past? And if so, what was it? And if you have not participated in a community mapping project, what's another recent community organizing project you've worked on in East Oakland? So I'm going to also drop this into the chat, but I will stop screen sharing so that we can all look at each other during this icebreaker activity. And I'll see if there's anyone that wants to volunteer and go first.
I'll come off video and start. Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Carey. I am a pediatrician, but I'm actually here working because I also serve as the executive pastor of True Vine Ministries, which is a church that is located in East Oakland, but we do work throughout Oakland. So the last event I would say we did in East Oakland is that I produce a health tip of the week. So every week there's a health tip, and we distribute that throughout the city of Oakland to various organizations. And so we do that weekly, and that's spread throughout Oakland. But we also targeted, last month, we targeted senior centers. So we have done a lot of work in senior centers, making sure seniors were aware of, COVID precautions, making sure they have their correct booster, that so that their health is sort of taken care of on the COVID front. And we also try to share information around other health issues that might be kind of impacting our seniors. I have a YouTube channel called Talking with Dr. Donna, and that YouTube channel, every week we do a different health topic. And so we have done topics around dementia, topics around just sort of staying healthy, all chronic diseases. And so we share that information throughout the city. And like I said, over the last month or two, we've been focusing on senior centers, because the first time we went to a senior center, we recognized that they didn't have really any information. And the questions that they were asking were questions that we had answered like at the very beginning of the pandemic, and they were sort of asking those same questions. And so we realized that perhaps there was a gap in their knowledge and understanding. So we've been targeting senior centers. And the last one was in East Oakland.
And then Donna, I'll have you just do popcorn style. So maybe you can just pick the next person to share.
Okay. Just gonna go, is that Akila?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Uh-oh, maybe not. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Akila, and I am from Youth Uprising in East Oakland. I am the Director of Curriculum Development and Training. So I basically write or find the curriculum for the various programs that we offer at Youth Uprising and train the facilitators. I also help with some of the grants as well. So we participated in the Clean Air grant that happened last year. I came on late. So it was kind of a scramble to try to, read through the grant, figure out what was written and pull it together. But it ended up being a successful program, and the kids really got involved and did a great community event to kind of culminate the program. So that was pretty exciting. That was the first program that I found curriculum for Youth Uprising. So it was a whirlwind, and I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to continuing work such as that. Nice to meet everyone.
All right, thank you, Akila. Do you want to pass it to the next person?
Okay, I think my colleague is on here. Caroline, did I see you?
Yeah, sorry. I was on mute.
Okay.
Hi,
You're it.
everyone. I'm Caroline. I'm the grants manager at YU. Just to piggyback off of what Akila mentioned, we were excited to partner with Bay Area Air Quality Management for the Clean Air Program, and that was a success for the youth. They really loved it, especially we were learning a lot about pollution and a lot of environmental injustice in the community. So we would love to partner again and just continue doing more work for the community surrounding pollution and air concerns. And I can pass it to, sorry, I'm not sure who went, to Bridget.
You might be on mute, Bridget.
It looks like Bridget did come off mute, but I'm not able to hear. Bridget, if you are speaking, we're unable to hear you.
I can actually introduce Bridget. She's one of my community health workers for Truvine. Oh, she's saying something's wrong with her microphone. She's one of the community health workers for Truvine Ministry. She's actually the one that does the outreach for the health tip of the week and takes it to various organizations. And something that she reminded me that I failed to mention in my initial talk, I'm going to take her 30 seconds too, is that in our talking with Dr. Donna, I focus in on generational health. And there's 4 pillars of generational health. Environmental health is one of our pillars, along with spiritual health, mental and emotional health, physical health. So those are our 4 pillars. And so we focus in on our health tip of the week on one of those 4 pillars. So that's how it kind of ties into being on present today, is that we have an environmental health pillar where we talk about the impacts of environment on our health.
Thank you for sharing, Donna, and introducing Bridget. And Bridget, I hope you can get your microphone working at some point. So I think last was Rose. I did get a message from Rose mentioning that she's here from Sequoia Foundation. She is currently finishing up a meeting, but is happy to be here and wanted to mention that some of her recent work includes youth engagement around air quality, and environmental justice within schools around Oakland. And so with that, I think that wraps up our icebreaker. And so I'll bring our slides back up and then pass it over to my colleague Anish to begin walking through some of his slides to cover some background information about the Air District, the AB 617 program, in East Oakland specifically. Just a second. And I'll pass it over to you, Anish.
Thanks, Carissa. And thanks to everyone again for joining, for sharing all the information, and for your interest in supporting efforts to improve air quality in East Oakland. Next slide. The Air District is the public agency that's responsible for regulating stationary sources of air pollution throughout the 9 counties that surround the San Francisco Bay. The Air District's mission is to create a healthy breathing environment for every Bay Area resident while protecting and improving public health, air quality, and the global climate. It is governed by a board of 24 locally elected officials from each of the 9 counties, and the gray area on the map here to the right indicates or represents the Air District's jurisdiction. Next slide. So what is AB 617 and the East Oakland Community Emissions Reduction Plan? Assembly Bill 617 is a statewide program managed by the California Air Resources Board. The goal is to utilize community-driven approach in partnership with local air districts to reduce air quality disparities in overburdened communities and expectations around enhanced transparency, accountability, and community engagement. In East Oakland, a community steering committee was established that is representative of East Oakland's diverse community to develop a community emissions reduction plan for East Oakland, again, in partnership with the Air District and our project co-lead, Communities for a Better Environment. The East Oakland Community Steering Committee meets regularly on the 2nd Thursday of every month. And the information, and then finally, I'd just like to add that the information that we gather from this community mapping project will eventually help inform the development of strategies that will be incorporated into the community emissions reduction plan. Next slide, please. So before we go get into an overview of the community organizing grants, I just want to pause here and see if there's any questions about the information that I just previously covered. Feel free to raise your hand or come off mute. If not, I'm not seeing any hands. Feel free to write them. If anything does come up, feel free to write them in the chat. or we should have plenty of time towards the end of the presentation for questions as well. So I'll begin the overview of the community organizing grants. The Air District is offering grants of up to $7,500 to nonprofit organizations based in or that serve communities within the project area. There is $30,000 total that will be awarded through this program. The projects will begin in September and run through mid-October, and the grants are focused on outreach to vulnerable and or underrepresented communities within the project area to use and add pins and information to the East Oakland community map. And at the bottom here is a link is a link to apply, and I can go ahead and copy that into the chat for you so that you can have that at your fingertips right there as well. Next slide, please. Grant recipients must be 501c3 organizations to be eligible. 501c3 organizations to be eligible and must provide services in the project area. Applications also need to be authorized by the executive director of your respective organizations. And your applications must be submitted. They must be complete when submitted by 5 p.m. on August 24th. And I just want to stress that because incomplete applications will not be considered or scored. And then finally, grant recipients must comply with the reporting deadlines that we'll go over a little bit later. Next slide. If you're awarded, if you are awarded a grant, grant recipients must agree to become familiar with the project and the online mapping platform to be able to explain it to community members. Grant recipients must also submit a short report that documents and describes the project activities and results, and a short financial report to document and provide accountability for how the funds were spent. Grantees will also be expected to attend the November 9th East Oakland Community Steering Committee meeting. And at that meeting, we'll be asked to share a summary of your project and a report out to the Community Steering Committee. And just one important note, once awarded and the agreement has been signed and executed, recipients will receive 50% of the grant amount at the beginning of the project to help get the project on its feet, and the balance will be released when you've completed the project and the 2 reports have been turned in. Next slide, please. So in terms of the application, again, here's the link to the application form. I pasted it in the chat for you as well. In filling out your application, you'll be asked to briefly describe your proposal for conducting activities. This will include a narrative. This will include a narrative which will describe your proposed approach, the target audiences you will reach, including outreach to diverse and underrepresented community groups, results you expect to achieve, and how your results will be measured. You will also be asked to provide a general schedule for your proposed activities. Activities should be conducted between the timeline of September 14th, 2023, and completed before October 19th, 2023. We would also like you to briefly tell us why you believe your organization would be effective at conducting these outreach activities, as well as provide one example where you successfully conducted outreach or an activity to promote an active activity or event in this community. Lastly, you'll need to provide a budget breakdown by general category that shows how you will spend the funds to achieve the results described in your approach in your narrative above. And note, the maximum award is $7,500 per grant award, and a detailed spreadsheet is not required as part of that budget that you submit. Next slide, please. This slide covers examples of what is the example of what the funds can be used for in terms of eligible and ineligible. And so I just want to highlight for you the examples that are ineligible for you to use grant funding to cover. And that's the purchase of iPads, tablets, phones, printers, or other equipment, activities that involve advocacy or lobbying elected officials, and activities outside the project area. And again, the project area, we'll share a detailed map of that later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. In terms of reporting and tracking results, as previously stated, grant recipients will be required to complete a short project report that documents and describes staffing on the project activities, outreach, populations engaged, and results. If your organization is selected to receive a grant, a template will be provided to you to help streamline this process. In your report, you will be asked to describe your results, aspects of your approach that worked well, and any lessons learned. And then finally, you will also be required to submit a short financial report to document and provide accountability for how the funds were spent relating to the outreach activities and the populations engaged. And again, if awarded, a template will be provided to you. And next slide. This slide shows a timeline of key dates. The August 24th, 5 p.m. deadline to apply for the grant. Applicants will be notified, grant awardees will be notified as of August 31st. And then projects will commence and run from September 14th to October 19th. And then the November 9th date again is for the East Oakland Community Steering Committee meeting, where you will be invited to share a report out of your project. And now, I know I just covered a ton of information, and so I'd like to pause here before we go on and see if there's any questions.
I had a question regarding, I noticed in one of your slides, it said that there's something about surveys. Does that have to be a part of the project, the completion of surveys, or is that an example?
So that's an example. We'll do a demo of the map and the activity that we are hoping you'll that we want you to engage the community with. Basically, what it is to utilize that map and to drop pins for three different markers, and those are hold on one second. Air pollution concerns, locations where people gather, and then other locations that the community wants to highlight as strengths or resources. And again, we'll do a demo of that, but that's the information that we're hoping the community can help provide. That will again help us, during our data analysis at the conclusion of the project, help the steering committee develop strategies that will inevitably go into be incorporated into the community emissions reduction report plan.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Anish, it's Rose.
Hi, Rose.
Hi. You may have already said this, so I apologize if you're repeating yourself. I was just in another in-person meeting, so I may have not heard. But is there a word limit for each of the questions? I didn't see it, if there was one.
There's not a word limit. If you look at that in the application, however, there is on a couple of the questions in terms of giving the examples. It's limited to a page, no more than a page.
Okay, got it. That's in addition to the Google form.
Yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Actually, Rose's question brought up another question for me. So I looked at the application and it was just the Google form. Is there an additional space or additional questions that we need to answer that are not in that Google form?
No, I apologize. I misspoke. No, it's all incorporated into that Google form.
Okay,
But there is no word limit, but we would like it to be kept to no more than a page amount, whatever in that Google form.
got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
All right. If any other additional questions come to mind, feel free to put them in the chat. And as I said earlier, we should have plenty of time towards the end of the presentation for additional questions as well. But with that, I'll hand it back over to Carissa.
Okay, thanks, Anish. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the slides back up, and then I'm going to cover another part of the presentation before we move into the demo today. Let's see. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the East Oakland Community Mapping project itself and talk a bit more about the social pinpoint tool and what you guys will be using to collect and gather information from community on. So Anish had provided some context earlier about AB 617, the East Oakland Steering Committee, as well as the Community Emissions Reduction Plan that we're tasked with creating. And so a key component of this Community Emissions Reductions Plan, or CERP that we call it, is the community mapping project and the community organizing grants that you guys are going to be applying for. So I'm going to be explaining a bit more of that over the next couple of slides. So this project was created to basically share power with and fund local leaders and organizations within East Oakland to work with underrepresented groups as well as community members in efforts that would allow them to share their concerns, their stories, as well as their historical knowledge onto the social pinpoint mapping platform. So this basically will help the co-leads, the steering committee, and the co-chairs do a few things. And so the first is to support the development of the strategies and goals for the CERP. And the second is to engage and hear from more East Oakland community members in the CERP development process. And so this is important because we understand that as the Air District, we don't know the community as well as the residents do. So to build on that local knowledge that they have, as well as the understanding that community members know their neighborhoods best, we believe that this tool and this process will help us develop better solutions for East Oakland. And so on this slide here is a quick snapshot of the social pinpoint tool, as well as the defined East Oakland boundary for the CERP. And then there is a link to the project webpage, which I'll go over more in depth later on during the demo. Go to the next slide. So we really want these these projects or these, I guess you can call points or mini surveys that you guys will be doing with communities. And this outreach to really be focused on equity. And so ideally, we want to be targeting, those communities that are more susceptible to air pollution, targeting the neighborhoods that are near sources of pollution, and reaching individuals and groups that are historically excluded and or underrepresented. And so that could include, youth, as well as linguistically isolated communities as well. So in terms of what information we are looking to collect, we have 3 main points that we're asking the community to put onto this map. So the first listed here on this slide is air pollution concerns. So things like air, dust, idling trucks, odors, smoke, anything like that would be a marker or a point that we would want to collect information from community. Another important point is locations where people gather. So we have a lot of sensitive receptor sites listed on the map. So that could be places like daycares or senior centers or hospitals or places like that. But we don't have all of them. And so community members are the ones who know what's going on in their community. And we want to gather more of that information directly from East Oakland residents. And finally, we also want to look at community strengths and assets. And so these are places that would, represent creativity, culture, history, heritage, and strength of the local East Oakland community. And so we're kind of looking at the combination of where existing known pollution sites and places that have permits from the air district are in relation to where people gather and community strengths and assets are, so that we can gather a more full picture of what's going on in East Oakland. So now we want to answer the question of what will we do with this information and the data that we're going to be collecting from community. So part of this is to understand what the community is concerned about. If we don't know what the community thinks is wrong, it's obviously going to be more challenging to help fix it. We also want to understand the interactions between regulated facilities, mobile sources, and personal experiences to inform potential strategies and solution development. We also want to know where susceptible populations are, making sure that we understand where people are and how pollution affects them. And also to understand better these communities that we are serving, in particular around the community assets. Those aren't things that we necessarily know, but are core to the identity of a community and are important and are places that we need to be aware of as we're doing this work. So that wraps up kind of my background on the community mapping project. And so next I want to transition to the demo, but before I do that, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions from you guys on the slides that I just covered.
Hi there, I have a question. If all of the information that we are gathering from the community members is informing solely the map, does that mean that the sort of answers that we would be getting from community members need to be sort of quantifiable in some way? In other words, if we were going about doing this in like an interview format or, engaging youth to talk about their community using artwork, I'm just making this up, would that not really be an optimal way to gather feedback because it's not really quantifiable to translate into a map?
So it doesn't necessarily have to be like quantifiable. A lot of these, the responses that you could get from community could be about their experience or what they see happening in their community. So for example, if there's, an odor event, They could provide feedback around, them smelling something from a nearby facility, and that could be a point on the map that they provide. Or it could be, that they want to highlight a community center in their neighborhood that's not currently listed on the map. That could be another point of information that's listed on the map that's not necessarily a quantitative piece of information. So it can be both, I guess, qualitative and quantitative, if that makes sense. I hope that answers your question.
Got it. That does make sense. I think like as long as the responses that they give, they get some sort of point on the map, then however you get that information is relevant.
Yeah, and I'll go over a couple examples of what, certain types of comments we've gotten from community members from the Richmond San Pablo social point tool looks like, as well as how community members can interact with each other on the platform and respond to different threads.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions before we move to the demo? Okay, I see no other questions. Feel free to drop things into the chat. I am going to be looking at a different part of my screen. So in case I don't see a chat or a raised hand, feel free to come off mute and just stop me. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so what I have here is just, I wanted to be able to share a few snapshots of what the tool looks like from someone who would be using their cell phone to access the map and add content to it. So this is just for you guys to reference. I'm going to be walking through the map from my desktop, but it honestly looks pretty much exactly the same. But before I get into the map, there were two web pages that I wanted to direct you guys to, just to show you and walk through what some of the additional resources that we have. And so the first is, and I'll put all of these links into the chat as well, and send these in a follow-up email as well. So the first is a link to our East Oakland 617 webpage through the Air District. And so here we have at the very top of our page an announcement box for the community organizing grants, as well as a link to the community mapping project. And so you guys can come here just to get some more information about the grant process, some of the key dates, contact information, and the application form in case you need it. So I just wanted to let you guys know that this is here. And then you can click on this link here, East Oakland Community Mapping Project, which will bring you to this subpage here. And what's useful about this page is it provides some of the information that we just covered, including the types of information that we're collecting and why we're doing this work. And then we also have a quick guide / like instructions for how to use the map. And then we have the embedded link to the actual map itself. And so I'll click on the quick start guide so you guys can take a look at this. But it just provides some more context about what is the East Oakland Community Emissions Reductions Plan, why we need your input, what information we're collecting, and what we're going to do with your input. So all the information we just walked you guys through again, as well as the quick start guide of how to share, community stories onto the social pinpoint map itself. So I'll go back to this landing page. And so here, if you click this link, East Oakland Community Map, that will bring you to the actual map itself. So I'm just going to click on this one to open a new one. And so this is the landing page that we're brought to. And so this community map is ran through the social pinpoint tool or web page. And so immediately once you click onto this web page, you're brought to this introduction window or pop up on how to share your story to the map itself. So this kind of, it's a little bit redundant, but it covers some of the information, again, that you've seen on the previous pages about, you know, why we're collecting this information and what we're going to do with it. And then it also includes, you know, some instructions on how to share your story, as well as who to reach out to if you have any questions or concerns or need any assistance. And so you'll just click out of this, the Get Started Now, to take a look at the map. And so then here you'll be brought to this interactive mapping tool. And so I'm working on it from my desktop, so I'm able to scroll around, zoom in, zoom out. And so one of the first things I'll cover is the icons. And so the first thing is we have a list of like sensitive receptors listed on this map. And so here at the bottom right is a legend of different points throughout East Oakland that we wanted to highlight for community. So that includes childcare centers, clinics, senior centers, hospitals, as well as permitted stationary sources onto the map. We are going to be working to tweak this a little bit so that the like pinkish icon, pinkish circles on the map itself match the little pink person on the legend. But for right now, it's just going to be color coded. Additionally, what you'll soon see the map to look like once people start adding information, and I'll just toggle over here to the Richmond example, is you'll see these different type of markers, which is the locations where people gather, air pollution concerns, and community strengths and assets. So that'll shoot soon as we start getting more feedback and content from community, be something that show up onto the map itself as well. But those will be the basically two different types of icons that you'll see on the map. So the sensitive receptors, and then the markers for the types of information that we're collecting from community. And so since this map is brand new and we haven't gotten any feedback from community, what I did want to do is share the example of Richmond so that you guys could see what some of the points and discussion looks like from community, as well as how they're able to interact with each other on the map itself. And so if I toggle over here, this one is a really good example of a comment that we received from a community member that got some engagement from other members of the public. And so someone commented, I believe this is an air pollution concern, that they noticed flaring from the Chevron refinery. They were specific. They gave the date that it happened and the time that it happened as well. And so what's unique about this is that folks can engage in these discussions. And so it is anonymous. It doesn't require them to enter in their name or their email. It's not going to show on the discussion. But what you can see here is that people are building off of, you know, each other's concerns and their comments, and building a discussion and a narrative around what is occurring in their community. What we also have, another feature tool, is the ability to like or dislike a comment, which is also anonymous. So this specific comment got, 3 upvotes. And so I'll just zoom out so you guys can see at the end of their project how much feedback they got. And so, you're able to just move around and see, really the breadth of how much community feedback we got during their their grant process. And so, you know, all over the Richmond, San Pablo area, people were commenting, you know, regarding air pollution concerns, community strengths, and assets, as well as locations where people gather. You know, so someone highlighted, you know, a location where their child goes to school to study. You know, there were a lot of comments regarding the chevron flaring and the smells and the odors that were occurring. And so just wanted to provide you guys the snapshot of what it looks like from the Richmond side, since we don't have any comments or points just yet from East Oakland. But now what I'll do is I'll toggle back to East Oakland to show you guys what it will look like when you go to actually add to our map and work with community to get their feedback. And so there's two ways to basically find a location on a map. You can zoom to a location, so you can move around and find an area that you want to add your pin to. And what's nice about this is that it's really granular. So you can get literally down to the street level and find the specific block or house or business that you want to find to place your marker there. There's also the option to search for a specific address, and you could type that address into this bar here, and that will take you directly to the address that you're looking for, and then you can add the marker there. So I've just zoomed to, and I just randomly picked this, but there is a preschool childcare center right here. So I'll go add to the map, and then another pop-up window will show, and it'll prompt you with the option to select the type of marker for your comment. So here you'll ask community whether or not they want to provide an air pollution concern, locations where people gather, or highlight community strengths or resources. So any one of these could apply to this location. So I will just pick locations where people gather. And then you'll just move and drag this around to specifically where you want to drop the marker. And then it'll ask you to confirm that, you know, this is where you want to place your comment. So I will click place marker here. And then another pop-up window will come up. And so this gives you just a bit more information about the type of information that we want to collect from community. So it says where people with increased health risks gather. And for their comment, we ask that they please describe any places not already identified on the map where people gather, you know, especially seniors, young people, or community members with increased health risks. And so they are required to type into the comment section, and they are required to provide their email, but their email will not be displayed alongside of their comment. They're also, you know, they do have to agree to the terms and conditions. So this box right here is required to check off. And then they do have the option to attach a photo if they're out and about and they want to take a picture of, you know, the odor issue, or, you know, there's a concern that they see, they can flag that photo and then attach that here. And then once they're done writing in their comment, provided their email, have agreed to the terms and conditions, they would click next, and then that would post that comment onto the map itself. Unfortunately, I can't do it right now. I don't have a comment. I mean, I guess I could do a test, but I think you guys more or less get the gist of how the comments will be added to the map. There are a couple other things on the map that I just wanted to quickly highlight as well too. So there's some other elements on this left side of the screen. There's an about section that just kind of covers some more of this information that you can find on the website or the quick start guide. So this includes more information about the map, the instructions, and the email for who to reach out to if you have issues. We do have another legend that we're actively working on updating. there are these icons here that we're working to embed and update into this map. And then once we start getting more feedback into the map, there's going to be this activity window here that folks will be able to sort by either the most recent comments or the comments that get the most engagement. And I believe I can show you on the Richmond side what that looks like. So let's see. So this is what that activity window would look like once we start getting feedback from community. So you can either search by recent or you can search by the comments that were most popular. And then this is the example of what it would look like if a person attaches a photo to their marker. Let me jump back to the map. But that was a lot of talking, and I feel like I've covered a lot on the map. So I will pause there and see if there's any questions regarding the demo, if there's anything else that you guys want me to go back over or redo. So.
No, this was great. Great demonstration. Thank you. It's a cool map.
I agree. This is a very cool map. And you also kind of answered my last question a lot. Like, I feel like I didn't even need to ask that question after going through that whole demo. But I am wondering, do you think that, you as the grantee could kind of go about getting these responses in a couple of ways? You could go about it where you're getting a community member to fill out that map, like in real time, you're walking them through the map. Alternatively, you could say like record an interview with them and then fill it out, later on yourself, or do you really prefer the community member themselves to be filling in all that information? I hope that question made sense.
That's a good question. I honestly think either way would work. I think if you guys would prefer to record them, if it makes it easier to record them, and you guys just write it down and input it later, especially if they have some sort of accessibility issue or can't access the map themselves, I don't see a problem with you guys inputting the content into the map on their behalf. The only issue is that you will have to get their email and just, make sure you confirm with them that they are accepting the terms and conditions before you post their comment for them. I think that might be the only thing that that pops to my mind right now, thinking about that.
Makes sense. Thank you. And did I see on that first image that the mapping tool is like very much interfaced on a mobile app format?
It is, yes. So how I just
Okay,
showed on my desktop is pretty much exactly how it will look on your mobile phone. And it's just as easy to move around and toggle. You'll just use your fingers instead of using like your mouse pad or a clicker.
Do you have a goal for the project in terms of the numbers, after this month? Is there a certain number of, points that you'd like us to have completed on the map?
That's a good question. I am gonna say no. I think we really want to focus on quality versus quantity. But maybe I can see if Anish or Anna, if you guys have discussed if there's like a specific number that we want the grantees to target. I know in the previous proposals for Richmond, there were certain grantees that had maybe targets between 250 to 500 responses during the grant period. But I don't think anyone was dinged for not getting 500 responses onto the map. So I think it was more so about, the quality of the response and being able to reach those underrepresented communities.
Okay, that's good because, in particular, if you're working with, let's say, seniors or even, parents of children, or non-English speaking, it will take a little bit longer to complete. Like if you're doing it with them, for them to kind of complete the survey and go through that time. So it will take a longer period of time, which means that on a daily basis, you might get less than if you were, doing with a tech savvy teen.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And thanks for that question too. So I think we'll say we don't, we're not gonna, penalize anyone for not getting hundreds and hundreds of markers on the map. I think, the focus is reaching, those communities that we haven't been able to target or engage with, and get their, their feedback and their concerns onto the map.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I know we still have about 25 more minutes or so. So I want to make sure I can answer as many questions as possible.
I wrote this question in the chat. It's not necessarily related to this project, but just the mapping in general. Is there a map for West Oakland?
I don't believe so. I think Richmond San Pablo, I believe, was the first community to use social pinpoint. Anish, is that correct?
Yeah, and Donna, I wrote a response. I don't know if you received it in the chat, but I can share it again. Yeah, so West Oakland, we did not utilize, or there is not a social pinpoint map. Chris is correct that the Richmond San Paulo was the first community to utilize it. Excuse me, so sorry. Utilize that tool. However, the West Oakland team did engage in other community mapping activities that involved actual physical maps.
Okay, great, because there's lots of areas of concern in West Oakland.
And yeah, I think a good place to check and see the results or to get more information on that would be to visit our website, the West Oakland page on our website, and you can take a look at the community emissions reduction plan that they developed.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Charisma, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Carissa. Just wanted to ask a question on behalf of everyone, and it's a question I have. Can you confirm that the points that are added to the map will appear instantly on the map for everyone, for the public to see, or does the district kind of update the map on a daily basis? And then the second question is, if someone made a mistake or wants to edit their point, can they?
That is a good question. I will get back to you on that because I'm not certain if there is a approval process. My best guess is that they are instant, and then there's like some sort of like monitoring that goes on just to make sure that there's no inappropriate comments. But I want to say that they will instantly appear on the map, but I will I'll confirm that and then get back to you and confirm that through email, because that is actually a really good question. Anish, I'm not sure if you know the answer to that, but I think it's their instant, and then there's monitoring that happens to make sure that comments are appropriate, on a frequent basis.
Thank you. And are they editable as well?
The comments,
After you submit one, can you go back and move your point or?
yes, I believe the original commenter has the capability to go back and change it or edit, but that's also maybe something else I should double back and confirm. I think
Thanks so much.
this platform might look a little bit differently than the Richmond one, and I haven't done a test comment just yet. So I should probably go through and do one later tonight just to see and just create like a test profile. Just to make sure.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, of course. And then Donna, I see your hands up.
So I'm asking this question on behalf of Bridget. The question is there technical assistance for learning how to use the map like really proficiently, sort of like a train the trainer, so that our staff feels really comfortable with the map before we go out and attempt to help others complete points on the map?
Yeah, so this demo is kind of like the first step of, I guess, what you could consider your training. And then, you know, after the application and selection process, I do believe there will be another training that will occur that will just kind of do basically another version of this or another download of the map, just to make sure that you guys are comfortable and familiar with the mapping tool itself.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any hands, but no worries. If you have more questions, you can feel free to reach out to myself or Anish. There is one last slide in the presentation that I wanted to cover before we end today's webinar. So I'm just going to bring the slide deck back up really quickly. And so that's this last slide here of who to contact with questions. So if you guys, need any assistance, you can reach out to Anish to schedule a phone or a video call to answer any questions about your application. And then after today's webinar, we're going to send out the following information to each of you guys. So that'll include a recording of the webinar, a link to the grant application, a link to the social pinpoint map, and then some of the other relevant resources like links to the website and links to the instructions and quick start guides as well. And then I believe that's it. Yeah, we just had a Q&A. So if there aren't any other questions, I can give folks back a little bit of time of the rest of their day. But I just wanted to thank you guys all for joining this webinar. I'm really excited for this process. I really love this kind of work. And I, look forward to reading guys' proposals and applications and seeing you guys out in the field doing this work.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.